For thousands of years, legends spoke of a hidden world, ruled not by kings or emperors, but by women, warriors on horseback, masters of bow and blade, feared and admired by the ancient world. Were they real or just myth? From the steppes of Scythia to the jungles of the Amazon, archaeology and science are rewriting what we thought we knew. This is the story of the lost world of the Amazons, where history meets legend. To find the truth, we return to the beginning, to the first whispers of a people unlike any the world had ever seen.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking, well, a pretty massive millennia-spanning investigation. We're looking into one of the most powerful and, frankly, globally persistent figures in human history, the Amazon.
Absolutely. This is a figure that really does seem to define myth, drive pure fantasy, and at the same time represent this ultimate kind of terrifying challenge to the established order of society.
Yeah, for thousands of years, Amazon has basically been shorthand for the warrior woman, whether she was real or, entirely fictional.
So our mission today is to put that very legend to the test.
Right. We're going to dive into sources spanning continents from, the deepest parts of the Amazon River Basin all the way to the Scythian steppes and the kingdoms of West Africa.
And the big question is, did the myth of a purely female warrior state ever truly exist outside the human imagination?
It's such a compelling chase because that core myth is just so potent, isn't it?
It really is. You have ancient authors like Herodotus describing these mysterious military women coming from the eastern steppes, forming their own state, totally independent of men.
With their own strict laws, their own martial culture.
Exactly.
And Herodotus, well, he was always one for the sensational detail, wasn't he? He included that initiation rite. That just makes your blood run cold.
The headhunting one.
Yeah. He claimed that for anyone to join this formidable nation, they first had to prove their ruthlessness by cutting off the head of a man in battle.
Wow. I mean, that image sets a truly brutal benchmark for the idea of a warrior society.
It really does.
But what's really remarkable, I think, is the universality of this legend. It's not just a Mediterranean story. It's like a global echo.
Totally. You see it defining the actual geography of the New World. The Amazon River, the largest river on Earth.
Got its name from that encounter.
Exactly. That reported encounter between Spanish conquistadors and these, quote, man-like fighting women.
And then you find clear historical counterparts in Africa. Highly organized, feared female military regiments. They mirrored the legend, but in reality.
And of course, they were central, just pervasive figures throughout the art, the literature, the mythology of ancient Greece.
So, okay, we have this universal, enduring figure. But before we really dive into the evidence, we need to set the criteria right. What are we actually looking for?
Good point. Are we searching for the historical fact that women fought? That they carried weapons, achieved high ranks? Because, well, we know that happened globally.
Right. Or are we searching for that mythological construct, the idea of a pure, isolated Amazon state, completely independent of male governance, just like the legends claim?
That's the crucial distinction.
It is. That's the essential investigative framework. We have to separate the reality of the weapon-bearing woman, the waffentragende Frauen, and the armed woman from the, let's say, fictional narrative the Greeks often used.
To explain anything unusual or powerful or threatening, especially on the edges of their known world.
Precisely. So to start separating those strands, let's unpack where the myth first found its most enduring modern home, South America.
Okay, let's travel now to the humidity of the New World. We're focusing on a pivotal moment. Late June, 1542.
Right. The Spanish conquistadors, led by Francisco de Orellana, they're months into what had become, frankly, a disastrous expedition. Starved, demoralized.
Deep in the jungle, these river systems, desperately searching not for women, but for gold. The fabled El Dorado.
And Orellana's expedition, it had already suffered huge setbacks. They were cut off from supply lines, fighting the current, constant illness. Morale was, well, shattered.
His reputation among his own men wasn't great either.
Not at all. And then suddenly the chronicle, it just shifts dramatically. They're hit by this unexpected rain of arrows. It launches this bitter fight between the heavily armed Spaniards and the indigenous forces defending their territory.
And the critical eyewitness account, the one that really cemented the river's name forever, it comes from the Dominican monk traveling with him, Gaspar de Carvajal.
Yes. And he reported this sudden, shocking attack by what he immediately called wild women.
His description, even reading it today, it's incredibly detailed, highly sensational,
Yeah.
and really provocative.
He describes them as exceedingly tall, very muscular, notably light-skinned, fighting completely naked except for, small coverings.
But the crucial detail,
Yeah.
the one that really defined the battle for the Spanish psyche, was his claim that each one fights like 10 indios.
Yeah. He painted this picture of such ferocious, skilled resistance that the Spanish, by his own account, allegedly had to retreat. They barely escaped a devastating defeat.
That moment, it's undeniably powerful, gives the Amazon River its name.
No.
But let's push back on that description a bit. Männergleich, or man-like fighting women.
Okay.
Given what we know about human physiology, how credible is that description of, like, superior fighting prowess? Or is this just the language of fighting men, maybe exaggerated?
Well, we can look at the physical data. That gives us a pretty clear baseline. Trained men generally maintain an average muscle mass of about 42% of their body weight. That's largely driven by higher testosterone levels.
Okay, and women.
Similarly, fit women average closer to 36%. So, yeah, there's about a 6-point gap. It's scientifically recognized.
That does sound like a significant difference.
Yeah.
Especially in, close quarters combat or drawing heavy weapons.
It is a difference, sure, but maybe not an insurmountable one, especially when you factor in skill and specialized training.
How so?
Well, sports scientists who study this stuff, they've calculated that even with that hormonal difference, women can achieve somewhere between 60 to 80% of maximum male strength.
60 to 80%. Okay.
Now let's consider the high end, 80%. If we assume these indigenous women weren't just average citizens, but were maybe selected, trained intensely since childhood, part of a dedicated warrior culture.
Then that gap starts to shrink, at least in terms of battle efficiency.
Considerably, yeah. So the question shifts from can they fight to how effectively can they fight, and crucially, what tools might they have used to bridge that strength difference?
Right. Was Carvajal's description pure hyperbole, maybe driven by fear and exhaustion? Or did the sheer, focused, high training level of these indigenous women truly close that gap in battle prowess, making them seem manlike to these European soldiers?
That's the pivot point. And this is where archaeology really helps ground the legend in some kind of reality.
Okay.
We look to the pioneering work of the first indigenous Brazilian archaeologist, Amy Emin. He used the geographical clues in the Spanish chronicles. He and his team actually managed to localize the potential battle site along the river.
And what did the ground tell them? Did it match the story?
It confirmed the existence of a robust, highly established society there. Right beneath the surface, the soil is incredibly dark, what researchers call terra preta.
The black earth.
Exactly. It's an unmistakable, deep sign of ancient, established cultivation, intensive human habitation spanning centuries. This wasn't wilderness, it was an ancient, carefully managed landscape.
So not just empty jungle.
Definitely not. And on the riverbanks, they consistently find large quantities of pre-Columbian pottery shards, vessel remnants, proving that complex, established indigenous settlements were there long before the Spanish ever showed up.
So it wasn't a chance encounter with isolated wanderers. Oruana basically ran headfirst into the defenses of a stable, organized culture.
Exactly. And this stability gives us the necessary anthropological context. This is powerfully highlighted by Eduardo Neves' decades of research into Amazonian settlement patterns.
What does Neves say?
Neves points out that, based on the evidence, women along the Amazon almost certainly held significantly greater political and social power than their European counterparts back in the 16th century.
Interesting. So maybe not a literal Amazon state, but high female authority was normal there.
It seems it was a societal norm, not some weird anomaly, which is crucial context.
We also have some enduring physical evidence tied to rituals and art, right?
We do. Zaman Waiwai, working with his assistant Kumina, followed local oral history about stone images nearby, and they discovered several Ritzeichnungen petroglyphs along the riverbanks.
Rock carvings.
Yes, and these are vital cultural markers. When you look closely, some of these drawings clearly show female sexual characteristics. It suggests this area was a specific, maybe sacred or special site designated for female ritual or power.
And then there are the famous amulets.
Yeah.
The Kamiabas amulets.
Right. Waiwai's team discovered a distinctive, smooth, frog-shaped amulet, and the legend is that these magical stones belong to the Kamiabas, this Amazon-like tribe.
And they were rumored to gift them to their lovers after their annual meeting for procreation.
That's the story. It's a compelling cultural narrative, isn't it? A story of undeniable female agency, control over fertility, relationships, tied directly to a warlike reputation.
But let's look even deeper into the past, way before the Spanish.
Okay, you're talking about the truly ancient art found in the upper Amazon region.
The Chiribiquete Fells Builder, the massive rock art discovered by Carlos Castaño Uribe. These murals are just staggeringly old. Some panels go back 19,000 years.
Over 20,000 images across numerous shelters. It's incredible.
And the main theme is life, right? Fertility, reproduction, hunting.
Reflecting life in what's likely one of the oldest settled places in the entire Amazon basin. But what really stands out when you examine the hundreds of hunting scenes is the depiction of women carrying weapons.
Ah, okay. So it's explicit.
Castaño Uribe notes that in Chiribiquete, almost everyone carries weapons. That includes women involved in hunting, fishing, gathering, and the depictions of women clearly carrying spears. They're unambiguous.
Okay, this brings us back to the fighting prowess. If women were using spears, how did they match the brute force needed for a really lethal throw?
Technology. The answer likely lies in technology.
Yeah.
The spear slaughter, or the atlatl.
The spear thrower.
Exactly. It's quite simply an ancient technological marvel, one of humanity's first complex weapons. We find them in Europe dating back 20,000 years.
And how does it work?
It's essentially a leverage-based extension of the human arm, a throwing stick that dramatically maximizes the torque and velocity applied to the spear shaft.
So what's the physical impact of using one? How much difference does it make?
It's a total game changer. It requires much less physical, effortless, sheer muscle mass than a traditional, unsupported spear throw.
Right.
This technology could allow a warrior woman to accelerate a spear up to an astonishing 150 kilometers per hour. That leverage drastically reduces the strength disparity we talked about earlier.
150 kilometers, wow.
Yeah.
That speed, that force, okay, that absolutely provides a credible physical explanation, rooted in technology, for why the Spanish might have encountered resistance so fierce that they genuinely believed they were fighting man-like women.
Right. The women didn't necessarily need to match the muscle mass of the Europeans. Maybe they just needed a better machine.
A better tool.
Precisely. So the description of warlike indigenous women could well be factually accurate, rooted in their training and their technology, which, again, circles us back to Carvajal's specific choice of the name Amazonan.
Because he was an educated Dominican monk. He knew his classics. He knew the powerful, established image of the invincible Amazon. That wasn't just a random word choice.
That's where the analysis gets sharp. It seems highly probable that Carvajal consciously used that powerful, known classical image, not just because the women were fierce.
But maybe to cover up or justify how badly they were beaten, or nearly beaten, by people he dismissed as naked savages.
Exactly. Calling them Amazons elevates the threat. It transforms what was nearly a humiliating rout into, a heroic struggle against mythological figures.
That's a strong claim about his motive, that it was conscious propaganda. Could it just be that he was genuinely terrified and just defaulted to the only language he had to describe powerful fighting women without, intentionally manufacturing heroism?
Well, it's certainly possible he was terrified, absolutely. But the use of that specific classical name is key, I think. Carvajal was writing for the royal court back in Spain. He needed funding, reputation. By framing the resistance as mythological, almost impossible to defeat, he manages the public perception of his expedition's difficulties, maybe even failures, far better than admitting they were bested by common natives.
So it's a classic case of using the powerful language of myth to save your own skin, basically.
It looks a lot like reputation management via ancient Greek literature, yes. A very compelling theory.
Okay, let's leave the New World for now and transition back to the origins of that powerful myth, the ancient world and that crucial Scythian link.
Right. So in Greek culture, the Amazon was just omnipresent. Geographically, they placed them from the Black Sea all the way down into Africa sometimes.
And mythologically, they were the literal daughters of Ares, the god of war, giving them divine authority in battle.
Exactly. And their legendary battles with famous Greek heroes, Heracles, Theseus, Achilles, these were central tropes. You see them everywhere. Countless Attic vases, shields, reliefs.
But as you pointed out earlier, the Greeks faced a massive cultural contradiction here.
Oh, absolutely. Fighting women were fundamentally antithetical to the very basis of Greek societal order.
Which demanded respectable women stay secluded, powerless in public life.
Precisely. They just couldn't rationalize a female warrior within their immediate social structure. It didn't fit.
So how did they resolve that cognitive dissonance? What did they do with the idea?
They basically resolved it by placing the Amazons outside of normal time and space. They were relegated to the realm of pure myth.
Fighting gods and
On
demigods.
the remote edges of the known world, exactly. They served as this convenient, symbolic enemy fighting against civilization itself, which, ironically, helped define and solidify Greek masculinity and their concept of order.
But then something changes. Visually, paleoarchaeologist Hermann Parsinger and Andreas Scholl, who directs the collection of classical antiquities in Berlin, they observed this monumental shift in iconography, starting around the late 6th century BCE.
The change is unmistakable, and it provides our strongest historical clue, really. Amazons stopped being depicted as, like, standard Greek fighters in Greek armor.
What did they look like instead?
Suddenly, they appeared on horseback, and crucially, they were clad in distinct Scythian or steppe clothing, characterized by long pants and covered tunics.
Clothing the Greeks considered barbaric.
Utterly barbaric. Those long pants are the massive tell. It links the myth directly, geographically, to a real known people, the Scythian nomads.
And we know the Greeks had deep, sustained contact with these steppe nomads, living across the territory north of the Black Sea.
Oh, the Greek presence was huge, especially in their colonies surrounding the Black Sea. Plato famously described it as sitting like frogs around a pond.
Right.
This intense colonization and trade started way back in the 7th and 6th centuries BCE. And archaeology, especially from burial mounds, confirms this intense cultural exchange, heavily driven by the Greek demand for that magnificent Scythian gold work.
Okay, so we had the location, the Black Sea region, and the people, the Scythians, this ferocious, nomadic horse culture that swept across the steppes.
Yeah.
Did they truly harbor the historical Amazons?
Well, that's where we turn to the material evidence, the curtains.
The burial mounds.
These immense burial mounds the Scythians built for their elite dead. Excavations near Warish in southern central Russia have uncovered particularly large, monumental kurgans.
And the size and wealth suggest highest status.
Absolutely. The war nobility of the Scythian tribes. And within these specific elite burial chambers, archaeologists found the most compelling evidence to date for the warrior woman.
What exactly?
In one chamber, they discovered the remains of 4 women.
Okay.
And crucially, every single one of these 4 individuals was buried with weapons.
All 4.
All 4. One was interred wearing a golden crown, another with a mirror and distinct bronze lance tip. It indicates these high-status Scythian women weren't just ceremonial figures. They were Waffentragen Frauen, weapon-bearing women. Their identity included warfare.
So the excavators felt this was more than just symbolic. It reflected their actual lives.
That was their interpretation, yes. That for this elite warrior class, fighting was integral to their identity, their status.
And did they look at the bones themselves?
Yeah,
To see if they back that up?
they did. To move beyond just grave goods, the skeletal analysis was vital. The Laboratory for Anthropology of the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow examined the 4 skeletons, trying to understand the physical realities of their lives.
And what secrets did the bones reveal about a life potentially dedicated to warfare?
The results were pretty illuminating. They confirmed that at least one of the individuals, a woman of middle age, showed clear signs of significant physical stress.
Like what?
Altered bone density, pronounced muscle attachment points, the kind you see from intensive horse riding, specific wear patterns on the joints associated with repeated, vigorous archery.
Wow. So literally the marks of a long life spent mounted and drawing a heavy bow.
That's what it looks like. And even more tellingly, the analysis showed signs of altered hormone levels, which can be linked to lifelong, intense physical exertion and the kind of nutritional stress common in nomadic war life.
So this allowed researchers, really for the first time, to hypothesize these were genuine historical warrior women,
Yeah.
fully integrated into the military life of their people from a young age.
That's the conclusion they reach, yes.
This evidence suggests the reality was probably quite far removed from those, romanticized, elegant figures we see on Greek faces.
Almost certainly. These were likely women whose physical forms reflected the harsh, unmerciful face of war.
Manly, robust, perhaps.
That's the consensus term used, yes, manly, robust, reflecting the brutal reality of constant fighting and physical hardship, which stands in stark contrast to the softer, often nude ideals painted by Greek artists.
So the Greek artists were painting a beautiful myth.
And the Scythian burial practices were recording a harsh reality.
Okay. This brings us to the logistics of mounted warfare. If they were fighting from horseback, especially without stirrups, They needed the perfect weapon.
Absolutely. Which leads us to the Scythian composite bow and some incredible work in experimental archaeology.
Tell me about that.
Harm Paulsen, a renowned German experimental archaeologist, took on the meticulous task of reconstructing this bow. He used descriptions, archaeological fragments, replicated the small, striking dimensions using the exact materials available to the Scythians.
Which were?
Ibex horn, elm wood, deer sinew, and fish glue.
The complexity of that ancient engineering is just astonishing. It's not just a single piece of wood bent into shape.
Not at all. The construction process alone took nearly a year for all the different layers to dry and bond properly.
How did it work? What made it so special?
Well, the core wood is shaped first. Then the animal sinew is glued onto the back that acts like a massive rubber band when it's stretched.
Okay.
Finally, sections of horn are glued onto the front, the belly of the bow. Those act like compression springs.
Ah, so it's that multi-layered design.
Okay.
It explains the incredible energy output.
Exactly. When the bow is drawn, the tendons stretch, the horn compresses, and then both components try to return to their original state simultaneously, resulting in phenomenal stored energy.
And the results of Paulsen's testing, how powerful was it?
Remarkable. Despite its small, incredibly handy size, perfect for using on horseback, the bow exhibited massive impact energy. Whums, as the Germans might say.
A lot of punch.
A lot of punch. It could shoot arrows 150 to 160 meters and penetrate 10 centimeters into a densely packed target.
Wow. That force is definitely more than enough to inflict fatal wounds, even through light armor.
Certainly. And the Russian experimental archaeologist Irina Strizhak, she specifically tested the usability of this weapon.
Mounted.
Yes. She successfully demonstrated that even without stirrups, which the Scythians didn't use, the small, powerful composite bow was an ideal weapon for mounted archers.
How so?
The stability offered by its compact nature allowed for effective targeting, even while galloping.
So it really was the ideal weapon for a mounted warrior of the steppe, female or male.
It seems so. However, despite all these incredibly compelling specific finds, we still need to apply a crucial statistical caveat.
Right. We found armed individuals, burials with weapons. But did we find the Amazon nation?
We did not. While those 4 elite burials are profoundly significant statistically, less than 5% of all Scythian female graves uncovered so far actually contain weapons.
Less than 5%. That's
Yeah.
a lot, considering how vast the Scythian territory was.
Exactly. These few warrior graves, while incredibly important for establishing the historical reality of the Waffentragenfrau, the armed woman, they just don't support the existence of a pure, widespread Amazon nation.
Or a large-scale Amazon necropolis, a dedicated cemetery for an all-female warrior society.
There's no evidence for that. The idea, the myth, still significantly outpaces the concrete archaeological facts on the ground.
So that statistical gap, it really suggests that the Greeks heard the truth, or maybe rumors, about armed Scythian women, and then immediately exaggerated it into the myth of the segregated Amazon state.
That appears to be the most logical synthesis of the evidence we have right now.
Okay, now let's pivot entirely. Moving from ancient myth-making to a location where the warrior woman moved decisively, definitively, from myth into verifiable recorded history, West Africa.
Yeah, even the ancient writers hinted this way sometimes. The Greek historian Diodorus mentioned an Amazonian people living in western Libya, predating the Black Sea Amazons by generations, he claimed.
But the really robust, documented evidence comes much later, doesn't it? From the Kingdom of Dahomey.
Absolutely. In what is now modern Benin, the Kingdom of Dahomey maintained a real, official, standing female military corps, known as the Aguji.
And this goes back centuries.
Dating back to at least the 17th century. This wasn't legend, this was state policy, historical reality.
What was their role?
They were established as the personal bodyguard of the king, who is known as the Minos. They were called our mothers by the court.
Our mothers.
Interesting. And they rapidly grew into this utterly feared elite troop. By the mid-19th century, their number swelled to nearly 6,000 warriors.
6,000, that's huge.
Making up a full third of Dahomey's entire standing army at the time.
And their organizational structure, their lifestyle,
Oh.
it was intentionally set up to mirror the most formidable aspects of the Amazon legend.
Right. It really seems so. They lived in strictly sealed-off camps within the royal compound. No man, except perhaps the king himself, was allowed near their barracks.
Led entirely by women.
Entirely led by female officers, creating a complete military hierarchy totally free from male interference.
Yeah, and their reputation.
Spread terror across West Africa. They were famous for their tapferkeit, their bravery, and their Gnadenlosigkeit, their mercilessness.
They were known for taking heads.
They were notorious for taking the heads of defeated male enemies in battle, a detail frequently highlighted in 19th century European drawings and accounts, which of course immediately link them back to the classical Amazon figures.
And there's ongoing work documenting their history.
Yes, historian Theo Cassius worked extensively on this, including interviewing their living descendants and the current ceremonial leader, Hangbi, who actively maintains their tradition today.
And you can still see symbols of that power.
You see modern power symbols, yeah. Wooden rifles, stylized, severed male heads, used as reminders of that historical, terrifying power.
And the rituals, what about those?
They remain profound. Hangbi confirmed their blood contract, a vow to fight to the death, sacrifice their lives rather than surrender.
Wow.
Kassi noted that Hangbi wore a small, powerful amulet, a small calabash containing supposedly a magical powder or poison.
And historically?
Historically, the Iguji carried this, and they would swallow it if capture was imminent, ensuring they wouldn't fall into enemy hands alive. The concept of surrender was just not compatible with their military oath.
They're these fiercely independent protectors of Dahomey.
Yeah.
Against rival kingdoms and later against European encroachment. But this deep dive requires us to acknowledge a critical, often uncomfortable historical truth here.
You're referring to their role within the Dahomeyan political economy.
Yeah. The Iguji fiercely defended the independence of Dahomey, yes. But historically, they also oversaw and profited from the human trade. The slave trade that dramatically enriched the Dahomeyan kings.
It's a crucial point.
How does the myth of pure female autonomy and bravery survive the historical fact that they were fundamental enforcers of a monarchy deeply involved in the slave trade? Doesn't that contradict the narrative of pure agency and nobility we often attach to the Amazon legend?
It creates a tremendous contradiction. It shows that historical reality is never simple, never clean. Their agency was absolute, no question. But it was agency within the specific, complex moral framework of the Dahomeyan state at that time.
So, highly respected for their warrior prowess.
Absolutely. But that prowess served a structure that was ultimately brutal by our standards today. When 19th century Europeans dubbed them the Black Amazons, they were fixated on the fighting ability, the shock of female power.
And mostly ignoring the complex moral dimensions of the state they served.
Pretty much, yes.
And it took French foreign legionnaires, armed with machine guns, to finally defeat them in the late 19th century.
That fact alone speaks volumes about their discipline, their commitment, but the aftermath of their defeat, it's just heartbreaking.
What happened to them?
It's truly a tragic end to a proud history. After their ultimate defeat, they were stripped of their status, reduced to, well, fairground sensations.
Yo.
Displayed in notorious European Völkerschau human zoos between the 1870s and 1930s, dressed up to demonstrate their supposed wildness for public consumption.
That's awful.
It's a profound, shameful example of colonization twisting power into entertainment. Exploitation.
Yet their bravery. It remains firmly fixed in West African collective consciousness, right?
It does. Modern women in Benin today actively join martial arts groups, self-defense organizations, specifically to honor the memory of their warrior foremothers. The legacy of the Iguji is definitely one of resilience.
So the Iguji provide the ultimate proof, really, of the historical warrior woman. An organized, highly effective, all-female military force that existed not just in legend, but in documented fact for centuries.
They are the undeniable reality.
And that historical proof shows that strong, warlike women were certainly not limited to the ancient world or to Africa. Let's move across the ocean one last time, to North America, and explore the stories of warrior women on the Great Plains.
Yeah, the common sort of Hollywood-influenced idea that Native American tribes strictly adhered to rigid gender roles. It's often profoundly inaccurate.
Right.
Sources confirm that stories of highly effective fighting women exist throughout the many tribes of the Great Plains. Almost every tribe seems to have at least one or two such stories of renowned female warriors.
And our specific, remarkable example today is Pine Leaf.
Pine Leaf, a mid-19th century leader of the Crow tribe, operating where the Great Plains meet the Rockies. She was famously known as the woman who was chief.
What was her reputation like?
Legendary, celebrated for her skills, an expert rider, proficient with multiple weapons, able to take down a buffalo with ease, apparently. Quick, cunning, exceptionally brave in battle. She was known to successfully count coup on enemy warriors.
Which is a significant indicator of recognized military leadership.
Absolutely. And teacher Cheryl Burdott, herself a member of the Crow tribe, offers vital context here. She identifies Pine Leaf as a two-spirit.
That means.
Not merely cross-dressing, but someone who successfully fulfilled both traditionally feminine and masculine roles within her society.
Ah, okay. That's a crucial distinction.
It really is. It reflects the pre-colonial Crow societal structure where contributions, leadership, they were judged based on personal talent, skill, impact, rather than strict colonial-era gender lines. Pine Leaf's personal abilities determined her role. Simple as that.
And her power wasn't just on the battlefield, right? She was also a diplomat.
Profoundly skilled diplomat, yes.
Ah.
Utilizing her negotiation abilities for the long-term strategic benefit of her people.
And this is where she really made her mark.
This is perhaps her greatest achievement. She co-negotiated the immensely important Fort Laramie Peace Treaty of 1851 with the U.S. government. Think about the significance of that. He sat as the sole woman among the male chiefs of 9 different major tribes, representing her nation on equal footing with the most respected male leaders.
Her recognized authority, her diplomatic skill, just undeniable.
She used her warrior status, her recognized leadership, to secure political power, to ensure her community's voice was heard at one of the most critical treaty negotiations in American history.
And much like the Aguji, Pine Leaf remains this vibrant inspiration.
Very much so. For contemporary Crow women who are striving to become successful warriors in the modern world, applying her bravery, her skill, her leadership to current political and social challenges.
Okay. That brings us to our synthesis. We found definitive proof of warrior women, pretty much every age, every corner of the globe. We found the weapons, the evidence of specialized training that enabled them. But did we find the Amazon state? Let's return one last time to the ancient world.
Let's circle back to Olbia, that Greek colony on the north coast of the Black Sea, precisely the area where Herodotus was likely gathering his tales. Archaeological work there by Alabushkic and Jochen Fornessier found a Scythian-style vessel, and it depicted an Amazon.
And that depiction, it's the final key to understanding the conflation of myth and reality.
It seems to be. The Amazon on this vessel is explicitly shown wearing Scythian long pants and a covered top, the distinct non-Greek clothing we talked about.
Yeah.
This really confirms the final analysis, I think. The Greeks took the undeniable reality of the Scythian armed woman and basically dressed the powerful Amazon myth over that figure. They shifted the iconography to match the physical evidence they were actually seeing on the steps.
And while we are cleaning up the ancient iconography, let's officially, definitively debunk the most persistent myth of all, the single breast.
Oh, yes. The etymology of the name Amazon from Amazos, meaning without breast, supposedly to better draw a bow, it's almost certainly pure mythology. Made up later.
You're sure?
Archaeologist Jochen Fornessier is crystal clear on this. There is not a single ancient depiction in thousands and thousands of pieces of art that shows an Amazon with only one breast. It is entirely fictional, a later invention.
Okay, good to clear that up. So we have the pieces. We have the warrior women. We have the technological equalizers like the Atlatl and the composite bow. We have political power demonstrated from the Amazon basin to the Great Plains. But what is the final definitive verdict on the existence of the pure Amazon state? The necropolis, the capital city, the society only of women.
Well, the answer hinges entirely on perspective, as Fornessier neatly summarizes it.
How so?
From the perspective of a person living in antiquity, yes, they absolutely existed. They were a historical fact within the Greek understanding of the cosmos, just as real as any hero like Heracles.
From the stringent modern historical archaeological perspective, the standard we use today.
The consensus answer is a clear, resounding NO. We have zero structural or widespread archaeological evidence. No necropolis dedicated entirely to women. No capital cities. No large-scale infrastructure. Nothing to prove the existence of an actual purely female Amazon state as described in antiquity.
And yet, this idea persisted for centuries. Influenced exploration, naming conventions globally. How did it survive without proof?
Because the myth was continuously relocated. It was portable.
Right.
When the Greek world, the oigamine, expanded into an area previously designated as the Amazon homeland, like the Black Sea region.
And they didn't find him there.
Exactly. They failed to find the pure state. So they simply updated the myth and moved the Amazons to the next unexplored edge of the map, further east, further south, eventually even to the New World.
Because the underlying idea of independent female power was just too potent to let die.
Seems so.
And that enduring power, that really is the fundamental takeaway from this deep dive, isn't it? The ultimate significance of the Amazon isn't found in whether a literal state existed or not.
Exactly. It's found in the idea itself.
Right.
The Amazon presents this fundamental systemic challenge.
A challenge to what?
It's the perfect counter-design to a supposedly natural order. It takes the typically male-dominated structure of society and fundamentally questions it, flips it entirely on its head.
And that is precisely why the myth remains immortal. So incredibly fascinating today, regardless of whether a pure capital city ever existed on a map.
I believe so, yes.
The ultimate expression, maybe,
Right.
of female agency, power, autonomy, removed from traditional constraints. It's an idea that continues to compel us, maybe, to reconsider what we believe is possible for gender and authority.
And that challenge is absolutely timeless.
So, if the idea of the Amazon is so powerful, precisely because it challenges the perceived natural order, because it upends established societal expectations, we leave you with this final provocative thought. Where do we see new Amazon myths? Or maybe just new ideas of radical, autonomous female power? Where do we see those arising today as modern society continues to redefine gender roles and authority in our own time?
That is definitely something worth chewing on.
Until our next deep dive.